Peace everybody, back with another video. This is about Andrew Ridgeley still has a number of questions about George Michael's death. We may never know what really happened. So now, I guess there's something more that people don't know about. So, now we will never know what really happened. Williams star Andrew Williams Ridgeley still has a number of questions about his best friend, and former bandmate George Michael's death. So Andrew Ridgeley is part of Wham. He still has a number of questions about his best friend and former bandmate George Michael. Michael died age 53 on Christmas Day in 2016 at his home in Oxfordshire. The coroner ruled his death as being due to a heart condition and therefore not suspicious. Yes, so Christmas Day of 2016, George Michael had died at the age of 15, or at the age of 53, I'm sorry. And this happened in Oxfordshire. The coroner did rule his death as being due to a heart condition and therefore not suspicious. However, in his new autobiography, George and Me, Ridgeley wrote, he seemed to be in good health, and therefore are conflicting reports surrounding that night that preceded his passing. So the autobiography, George and Me, Ridgeley wrote, he seemed to be in good health, and therefore are conflicting reports surrounding that night that preceded his passing. So now we got this autobiography that came out about George Michael and his friend, that the circumstances of his death seemed unclear, only compounded the distress without any real closure. The grieving seemed terribly raw. So the grieving did seem terribly raw. The circumstances of his death seemed unclear, only compounded the distress. That's all it compounded. A heart condition was eventually recorded as the cause of death, but there are still a number of questions. It now seems as if we may never know what really happened. So we're not going to know what really happened unless somebody speaks up about it. Ridgeley was George Michael's best friend and a bandmate also. The heart condition was eventually recorded as the cause of death. So that was the cause of death by the coroner. But now there's something more that we may never know about at all. Ridgeley added, we don't like our lives being monitored, so when someone dies alone, perhaps there are always answers that remained out of reach. So it's true, we don't like our lives being monitored, but when someone dies alone, perhaps there are always answers that remained out of reach. So who knows what really happened with George Michael? It still feels uncomfortable, though. God knows what it must be like for George's family. And it's true. God knows what it must be like for George's family. Of course, George Michael's family, they're still grieving because, this Christmas, it'll be 3 years that George Michael has passed. And of course, he says it still feels uncomfortable, though. After news of George Michael's death broke, Fede Fazlaz, the singer partner, said he found the star dead when he arrived to wake him ahead of a planned Christmas Day lunch. And of course, Fede Fazlaz, he got into a whole lot of trouble after what he has done to George Michael's home. And of course, Fede Fazlaz came running after the death of George Michael. He found the star dead when he arrived to wake him ahead of a planned Christmas Day lunch. So George Michael was going to go out for Christmas Day lunch, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. I never saw him. I fell asleep in my car, and I never saw him that night. Mr. Fazwaz told the Mirror, "The police know everything. That's the most important thing." Well, okay, so the police do know everything, but there are still some things that are missing, but we just never know what it is. Now, Fady Fazwaz, he said he fell asleep in his car. Now, did he really fall asleep in his car? And then, of course, he says, "Oh, I never saw him." So, if he didn't see him that night, and he allegedly fell asleep in a car, then why would he just run up to the house and find George Michael's dead in bed? Something's not right with Fady Fazwaz. I don't trust him for some reason, and that if he's finding George Michael deceased, I mean, Fady Fazwaz is a little funny about something, but we just never know what. In July, hairdresser Fazwaz, who had been squatting in Michael's house since his death, was arrested on suspicion of aggravated criminal damage after he allegedly smashed windows at the mansion. So Fazwaz was arrested on suspicion of aggravated criminal damages, but of course he got out of jail after that. And of course he took, because Fady Fazwaz took a whole lot of damage to George Michael's mansion, and it was a beautiful mansion that George Michael had until Fady Fazwaz took it and smashed it. Ceilings, toilets, sinks, walls, chandeliers, anything you could think of in that house, he's done it. And, I mean, the condolences are still to the George Michael's family, but hopefully somebody could come forward and tell what really happened to George Michael, because if Fady Fazwaz knows something, he better speak up now, because a lot of things we don't know about still. Leave your comments below. I am out.